So students, today we are going to start with a very interesting topic that will give you a nice start to understand Indian government and politics section, as well as to understand the politics in contemporary times, and we will see a very different understanding of the national movement today. Okay. And as we have already provided you the content, so focus more on understanding. Just if you want, you can note down the key themes. Otherwise, very comprehensive content I have prepared and it has been sent to you. Fine. So now, today the topic is perspectives on Indian national movement. Perspectives on Indian national movement. And in syllabus, you have liberal perspective, Marxist perspective, radical humanist perspective, Dalit perspective, and socialist perspective. Fine. So basically, you understand how important the idea of nationalism in Indian politics. Today, we will understand the concept of nationalism, and we will also understand little bit about contemporary Indian politics. So if I say in present India in 2014 and in 2019 elections, we have seen BJP winning with absolute majority, and the ideology which BJP says is nationalism. The critics say Hindutva, they are saying nationalism. And all the other sections, especially left, BJP will say anti-national. Fine. So, ideology of nationalism has a potential for any political party to emerge as the mass party or the dominant party. Fine. So, we have seen two dominant party systems in India. One was Congress system and the other is BJP system. Okay. And because of the role of Congress during national movement, because of the ideology of Congress and the charisma of Pandit Nehru, Congress remained one party, or India remained one party dominant system from first general election till fourth general election. So we have seen another dominant party system, Congress system, or one party dominant system. Fine. So basically, what is nationalism? What is nationalism? Nationalism like any other ism, the moment you bring this word ism, is an ideology. I'll say it is a political ideology. And what is the purpose of political ideology? The purpose of ideology is mobilization of masses. Yeah, mobilization of masses. So in our democratic countries, you need ideology for the mobilization of masses. And after studying political theory, I hope all of you understand that modernization led to the rise of nation states. And nation state is an institution which emerged along with capitalism. And if we go by the philosophy of Karl Marx, nationalism is an ideology of the bourgeois class, the capitalist class, or the middle class to weaken the solidarity of masses. The ideology contesting to the ideology of nationalism has been communism, or basically a type of socialism. And Karl Marx wanted to enlighten the workers to develop the true consciousness that your interest does not lie here. In fact, you are getting trapped under nationalism or in the name of nationalism. So, nationalism versus communism. There have been other ideologies, but over a period of time, in modern times, there has been no ideology politically proved to be as effective, as influential as the ideology of nationalism. So you can play different cards, but even in present age, if you play the card of nationalism, you are going to be a winner. We see Trump's elections. In the crisis situations of America, when Trump was elected, he elected on this ideology, America first, ideology of nationalism. However, at present, maybe the ideology of nationalism may get challenged by the ideology of religious fundamentalism. So basically, nationalism is an ideology of capitalism with two shades. In normal situation, liberalism, and in crisis situation, fascism. What is fascism? Fascism is rightism, or extreme right, or you can say conservatism. So first of all, in politics, the words that we use may be very deceptive, and the reality is different. So for any political analyst, you need to understand how to deconstruct the terms that we use in politics. So up till now, the ideology which has been the most dominant ideology that has always won over has been the ideology of nationalism. And maybe in future, the ideology of nationalism can get challenged from the clash of civilizations or religious fundamentalism. And if we can combine the ideology of nation and religion, it becomes a very deadly combination, fine, and a very powerful ideology. And you are already witnessing the impact of this ideology in India. The formation of Pakistan is also based on the combination of Muslim nation. So this becomes a very deadly type of an ideology, very powerful ideology. So in short, the point I am making is to understand, not from an emotional perspective, but from the perspective of the student of political science, is that nationalism is a political ideology. Because for certain goals, you need the mobilization of masses, and nationalism has that potential by which you can go for the vertical as well as the horizontal integration. Horizontal integration means among the people of same level, as well as vertical integration means the members of higher caste, higher class with lower classes. Now, nationalism has been the ideology of Indian National Congress during the British time, and by the time Gandhi emerged on the political scene, it was almost accepted that if not by the British were consistently in the denial mode, but it was accepted that Congress is the spokesman of masses or a nationalist party. At that point of time, Congress or the politics of Congress saw opposition, let us say, from Muslim League, which projected itself as the protector of minorities. But if you go and analyze, if Congress has been the party of the bourgeois, the Muslim League has been the party of the feudal lords, then it was challenged by Hindu Mahasabha, they projected themselves as the protector of Hindus, and they found Gandhi's program or Indian National Congress program is not strong enough to protect the interest of Hindus, and maybe for developing the coalition of masses or different classes and communities, somewhere this interest will get affected. Then there was Republican Party or All India Depressed Class Association representing Ambedkar, and his politics was based on mobilization of Dalits against Indian National Congress. In South, we have that Justice Party, self-respect movement led by Ramaswamy Naicker, and he was representing the OBC section of the Indian society. Then again there were numerous small parties at the regional level also. So this was the political environment and the clash of ideologies, and they have been the prominent political ideologies of Indian politics then and now also. So now if we change that, Congress could establish itself as a one-party system, single dominant party, or you know about Congress system. It happened because of its ability to mobilize, vertical mobilization and horizontal mobilization. So Indian National Congress of that time is presently replaced by BJP. Fine, and you have regional parties, SP, BSP, you have SP, RJD, JDU and all, you have BSP. Fine, you can link the leadership of like OVC, and even you have, that time also there was a left section, now also left section, and today in a way this ideology is dominant and it is taking shape of a nationalist ideology. So what have been the ideologies of Indian politics? Ideologies of Indian politics. See, politics does not operate in vacuum. Politics will always be shaped by caste, religion, or the social realities of Indian politics or Indian society. So we understand the social reality of Indian society is caste and religion. And religion can also be seen as a caste. We can consider Muslims as a caste because number of times we talk about this caste arithmetic, Muslim Yadav combination. So caste and religion forms the foundation of Indian society, and in Indian society, Indian politics, the two narratives has been one, secularism and nationalism. If I talk about present and the secular forces, let us say Congress, let us say Trinamool Congress, BSP, RJD, SP, they primarily project themselves as the secular forces. But if you see the actual composition, you can say that it is politics of minorities and the depressed classes, and secularism in India is a name for the politics of minorities. Nationalism in India at present is the name of majoritarian party or majoritarian politics. And basically, whether you talk about secularism or you talk about nationalism, we always talk about caste and religion. And every party you can associate with a particular, either with a particular caste or with a particular religious community. Be it RJD, SP, Muslim Yadav combination. If you see Congress is basically, if you see by the electoral behavior and the support, why Congress is in minority? Because Congress has been reduced to the party of minorities, and basically the main vote share the Congress has is from the Muslims as well as the other minorities and the tribals. So we will study about all these things in India's electoral behavior, role of caste, role of religion. So you have to understand that in politics we have to deconstruct the meanings, and the political analysis is more about what read between the lines. It is easier like what you want to say, or rather than actually what a person is saying, you will have to understand what he is not saying. So he's saying nationalism, but it becomes majoritarianism. He's saying secularism, but it becomes minoritism. Fine. So let me take you back to the original topic, and the purpose of my discussion of all these ideologies was to tell you that the political activities taking place in Indian subcontinent from 1857 to 1947. Our objective of doing the perspective is to understand the politics and the political activity happening on this subcontinent from 1857 to 1947, and to also analyze whether there is any change in the politics then or the politics now, whether the nature of the politicians then is in any way different from the nature of the politicians now. And you already know that in India we always see continuity. There is more of a continuity and less of a change, and you will realize that politics then and politicians then, the ideologies then and ideologies today, it is not different, and there is not much difference is the politics of that time and politics of India in present. So the political activities from 1857 to 1947, the question is how to describe. What is the word that we will use for the activities which were taking place in India? So there is a meta-narrative as well as there are micro-narratives. There is a grand narrative and there is a micro-narrative. The meta-narrative is of the political activities from 1857 to 1947. The meta-narrative of the political activities it has been a national movement. In India, we have seen national movement. Presently also, we are seeing national movement 2.0. So maybe that was national movement 1.0. There was one idea of nation developed by the Congress, and now there is another idea of nation which is given by the present ruling party. The idea of New India, Congress Mukt Bharat, New India, and a very different. If you pay attention to the rhetorics which are often used, New India, Emerging India, Vision, that these words gives you a lot of meanings. You have to understand the depth of these words. So, how to describe what was happening during this time? And from 1857 to 1947, the political scene was dominated by Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress was the hegemonic party, and it remained hegemonic party till 4th general election in 1967. But along with Indian National Congress, there were other political parties also. For example, Muslim League, for example, Justice Party, for example, Congress Socialist Party, for example, Communist Party, for example, Republican Party. So, how these parties were presenting, or how these parties were looking at Indian National Congress and the activities which Indian National Congress was leading. So the basic thing is, when we are doing the perspective of Indian national movement, we have to understand how we should describe the political activities from 1857 to 1947. What is the best way to describe the political activity and the grand narrative, the narrative built by Indian National Congress and their organic intellectuals and their traditional intellectuals, or the historians writing from the perspective of Indian National Congress. And if I talk one of the contemporary historian writing from that perspective, Bipin Chandra, and he's supposed to be one of the most acknowledged person or historian with respect to the political activities. His masterpiece, India's Struggle for Independence, it establishes Indian National Congress as a nationalist party. It established that the movement led by Indian National Congress was a national movement. So one great grand narrative of this was the political activities taking place is national movement. But when we look it from alternative perspectives, from the micro perspectives, if I take the perspective of Muslim League, how they looked at what they wanted to project it. They wanted to project that it was not a national movement and Congress is a party of Hindus and Hindus are in majority, and when democracy will come to India, the culture, the way of life of Muslims will be under threat, and we are not a part of their movement. Rather, we are a separate nation and we have a separate movement, and our movement should lead to the establishment of the separate state for the Muslims of the subcontinent. Then if we talk from the perspective of Justice Party, the perspective of Ramaswamy Naicker, their perspective was, Indian National Congress is not the nationalist party. There is no concept of nation. India cannot be called as a nation. Rather, Indian National Congress is the party of Brahmins and its political program is going to benefit only the Brahmins. Now, if we talk about Communist Party of India and even Radical Humanist Party of M.N. Roy, he will say that Indian National Congress is not the party of masses. Indian National Congress is a party of the bourgeois class. Gandhi is a leader of the bourgeois class who is actually misleading the masses. Now, again, if we talk from the perspective of Ambedkar, his Republican Party, Ambedkar will say that Indian National Congress is not a national party, it is not a national movement. It is a Brahmanical party, or their Swaraj. Their Swaraj will not lead to the liberation for Dalits. Rather, their Swaraj will lead the suppression of Dalits by the upper castes. And then there was also a narrative of the colonial state and the colonial historians who also never acknowledged that it was a national party or a national movement was going on. Rather, they always held that India is not a nation, India is just a geographical expression, and India can never be a nation. And these elites, it was the entire politics that was happening, they were not fighting against the British. Rather, there was infighting among themselves to gain favors from the British. Instead of Muslim League and Indian National Congress and Ambedkar and Jinnah and Hindu Mahasabha coming together to fight against the British, actually they were fighting among themselves, and this was actually a Mahagathbandhan against the Congress. And everyone was competing to gain favors from the British Raj. So there are different interpretations of the political activities that were happening in the subcontinent, and we have to understand the various perspectives. Now, before understanding the perspectives, whether it was a national movement or not, whether Gandhi was the nationalist or not, what is nationalism, we also need to understand what is nation, what is nationalism. Nation comes first or nationalism comes first, and there can be a question: what is the peculiarity of nationalist movements in colonies? Is it the mechanical application of the European nationalism, or it has some distinctive characteristics of its own? So there is one scholar, Partha Chatterjee, and Partha Chatterjee, for example, they can ask you this question, whether the nationalism in colonies is a derivative discourse. In this context, Partha Chatterjee has described that yes, the nationalism in colonies was a derivative discourse, but it was also not entirely similar, different yet derivative discourse. So after doing all these, we should be able to answer these questions. So now let us discuss certain concepts. For example, the concept of nation. What exactly the nation is, and what exactly the nationalism is. So that we can finally understand whether this movement was a national movement or not, or what is going on at present. So what exactly the nation is. So there are different theories of nation. From the theoretical part, they can ask you question, give different theories of nation and whether Indian nationalism is a derivative discourse. So right now the discussion which I will be doing will be from this perspective. What is a nation? What is nationalism? And what is the nature of nationalism in India, and whether the nationalism in India is a derivative discourse. And after that we will see different perspectives on nation. So let us talk from the perspective of the European history of nation and nationalism. So yes, we became aware of any such word, any such ideology only as a result of the Western education. We are not at all aware of what exactly the word Rashtra, used in Sanskrit texts, represent. Fine. Is Rashtra, the term Rashtra is equivalent to the nation? And again, there is no need to write all these things. It will be better if you listen, because notes are already there. So we have to study the concept of nation with reference to the history of Europe, and then we will see that the nation and nationalism in India, was it something indigenous, or whether it was a derivative discourse of the European nationalism. So nation as a word, we have come to know, we have become aware only as a result of the European colonialism. Before that, we knew this word Rashtra, but what is the exact meaning of the Sanskrit word Rashtra? We don't know. Was it a psychological concept? Was it a cultural concept, or was it a territorial concept? Means people living in this particular territory, they form one Rashtra. Considering the enormous diversity which India always had, the concept of nation in India, and if we guess the concept of Rashtra, it is going to be more of a territorial concept. India as a nation, forget nation, we will discuss. India as a nation, or let us say Rashtra. Most probably the term Rashtra denotes a territorial concept. Fine. Even India at present is more of a territorial nation rather than the cultural nation, because there is so much diversity in India. Again, if we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan is a cultural nation because it is based on religion and culture. That is in the foundation. And the concepts of nations are many. Fine. For example, the Western concept of nation is also territorial. But as we find in works of Iqbal or other Al-Baruni, the concept, there is no concept of territorial nations in Islam. Just like there is one concept of Rashtra in Indian or Sanskrit texts, there is a concept of Ummah, U-M-M-A-H, or brotherhood, Muslim brotherhood in Islam. So the Muslims, according to that theory, cannot be divided on the territorial lines. All Muslims, they belong to one nation. So their concept is Muslim brotherhood concept. These terms will again come when we will discuss the politics of Middle East and Arab Spring and other things. So even it is no, like the Eastern concepts and the Western concepts are very, very different. And out of all Eastern countries, in terms of political ideology, in terms of political system, India is very near to the Western concept. India has chosen to be Western. India has chosen to be liberal, and especially under the leadership of Pandit Nehru and Ambedkar, India also started westernization and modernization. So let us talk only about European nationalism. Then in Europe, the idea of nationalism is considered as the idea of modern times. Fine. And what is exactly a nationalism? Nationalism is a principle of solidarity, living together, principle of solidarity, brotherhood, fraternity, living together. Fine. So, if we see the ancient Greece, there was solidarity among the people of Athens, but there was no solidarity between the people of Athens and the people of Sparta. But today, there is a solidarity among the people of Greece. They consider themselves to be a part of one nation. So, nation is, or nation emerged when the local communities, for example, if it is a city-state, if it is a village, it is a local community, you will know each other, fine? The level of interaction, or this interaction will be quite intense. The level of interaction is going to be quite intense, fine? You will be knowing people by face. Now, what will happen? These local communities will, small, local and very segregated communities, with the development of mass communication and all, they will start evolving into one big community. Even in India, how that nationalism had started, we had a very localized way of life, but when the Britishers have introduced railways, railways has also led to the development of the nationalist consciousness in India. So from a very localized type of a community with high level of interaction, these things getting submerged, and a big community, a big body politic, a big polity politic will come into existence, and that will be a nation. And the concept of nation is here, it is impersonal. Means I in my village may be knowing everyone, and that is a person basis of my solidarity with the person living in my village. But today I feel a solidarity for the person in the village in Kerala, fine? And suppose some disaster happens and I donate some money for addressing or for addressing the needs of the persons affected by that floods or disasters. So somehow I am in a position to connect myself, have some feeling of solidarity to the person in the remote village in Kerala. I have never met that person, fine? So now the basis of solidarity will become impersonal. This basis will become anonymous. It is very impersonal, it is anonymous, and I and he belong to the same nation is in my imagination. I don't see him. This is invisible, this is informal, this is anonymous, and this is imagination. So nation is based on imagination. You imagine. Because you imagine some feeling of oneness and concern, nation is a psychological concept. It is a psychological concept. It is based on imagination. You have never met that person, but still you consider that person as a part of your nation, or you are part of that nation. You have a feeling of solidarity. So nation is a psychological concept. Nations originate in imagination. If we imagine that we are part of the nation, for example, before modern times, the people living in India were not imagining themselves as a part of Indian nation. But today they imagine themselves as a part of Indian nation. At that point of time, you were Marathis or Gujaratis or belonging to this community, that community, but today in your imagination, this nation is a psychological concept. It remains in imagination. But you need some basis to develop imagination. Some basis has to be there to develop imagination. So normally you must have heard that nation is a psychological concept. What does that nation as a psychological concept denotes? Nation lies in our mind, because you already know we are interpellated. Fine. So we have been made to feel, we have been made to think, we have been made to imagine. But even for imagination, you have to have some base. This base can be concrete, this base can be real, this base can also be in the stories, or you can also create stories. You can create the story of Ram winning over Ravan, or in the people of Sri Lanka, they can create a story of Ravan winning Ram. So stories, you can develop the stories, you can develop the things, you can create imagination, you can compel people to think. Fine. So nations are often described as imagined communities. It will take time for you to imagine that your interest and the interest of the people living in, let us say, some remote village in northeast is same. So it is an imagination, and this imagination is required because nation is bigger than the city state, and once things will become bigger, you will not interact. There will be anonymity. There will be impersonality. Fine. So nations are imagined communities, and these imagined communities will be based on invented traditions. So normally you have to develop an imagination that you belong to one nation. The normal definitions of nation is that nation consists of such people who believe that, who imagine that they have a common past and they have a common future. Fine. So future is built, the future of India as a nation. We talk about India gaining the rightful place. You have to present, for the unification of the nation, you will have to present some picture of the nation which inspires people, which make people ambitious about that project of nationalism. So basically, nation and nationalism is also a project. And imagination. So imagination, again, imagination of future, imagination of past, because in the present you won't be seeing anything. So in the past, you have to look for the traditions, and if traditions don't exist, you will have to invent the traditions. So traditions are invented, traditions are reinforced. For example, Tilak has invented the tradition of Ganpati Pujan in a public domain, or Shivaji festival, and tried to bring this in the imagination that they belong to one Rashtra and acting as a unifying factor. So similarly, Jinnah has built the imagination among the Muslims of this subcontinent that they belong to one nation on the basis of some common history and tradition, and if the traditions have not existed, then by inventing the traditions. If we go practically speaking, or as Bipin Chandra analyzes, there is more commonality between in the interest of a rich Hindu and a rich Muslim in comparison to a rich Hindu and a poor Hindu. A poor Hindu and a poor Muslim, they may have more in common, but it has been made beyond imagination. They are made to imagine that the interest of them is common with the elites and not at the horizontal level. So it is all politics, it is all project. Nation is an imagined community, and this imagined community is based on invented traditions. So in exam, you can get a short note on what is imagined community, what is an invented tradition. You can explain it with the example of Tilak starting the Ganpati festival, or Jinnah talking about, or Iqbal talking about the Muslim nation based on common culture. In fact, there is a lot in India the Muslims have in common with Hindus. Then the commonality we may have. The Muslims in Bengal will be speaking Bengali. The Muslims in Karnataka will be speaking Kannada. So there will be more similarity between a Kannada Hindu and a Kannada Muslim. But you are creating an imagination where you will project that these interests are not only antagonistic, different, but they are also two antagonistic groups, and all Muslims in India have the common interest. So nation is also a type of a politics. Nationalism is also an ideology needed for political mobilization, and nations are created. Nations are invented. It requires a type of imagination which is invented on a tradition. Fine. So there are various theorists of nation and nationalism. One theorist is Benedict Anderson, and Benedict Anderson calls nation as imagined communities, and I just told you why this imagination is needed. This imagination is needed because from local you have become a bigger body politic. From a city state you have become a bigger body politic. More bigger it will be, more bigger your organization, more anonymity will come, more you will become impersonal, and to keep them together, writes another theorist of nation, Hobsbawm, we go for inventing the traditions. Fine. Then there is another very important thinker in nationalism, and that is Gellner. And Gellner has written about nation and nationalisms, and he says that nations are the product of the age of nationalism. Nations are the product of age of nationalism. So when the age of nationalism came, age of nationalism can be a code word for age of capitalism. Age of nationalism can be a code word for age of modernization, westernization, capitalism, rationalization. So when the age of nationalism came, we became nations. So basically, nations do not give rise to nationalism. It is the other way round. It is nationalism which can be seen as code word of capitalism, which is a code, or for which another code word is modernization. Nationalism give rise to nation. So if we see the history of India as a nation, so age of nationalism came, nation states emerged. We have already seen the interlinkages between capitalism and nationalism. You understand, capitalism runs on profit. So capitalism is anyway expansionist because you have to make profit. So the age of nationalism which emerged in Europe led them to move out of Europe to Asia, Africa, America, Latin America and all. So we also came under the age of nationalism, and as a result of the Western contacts, as a result of Western education, we came to know about the nations in Europe and we started imagining ourselves as a nation. So in the age of nationalism in Europe, India has experienced colonialism. And if we talk about British colonial masters, so they have, you cannot rule only by force. You have to do something good for the persons on whom you are ruling, or maybe for their own convenience. They have introduced the English education. We have been introduced to the English education. We have been introduced to these ideas which led us that we also need to evolve as nation. Fine. So Indian National Congress started with the project of nation building, and they started describing their task, nation building. That is why how are they going to build the nation? By holding the sessions in different parts, spreading this nationalist consciousness. Surendranath Banerjee has written a biography, India as a Nation in Making. So the nation building project has started, and this nation building project is still continuing. So nation is, if we go by Gellner's concept, then nation is a result of our evolution. Nation is a result of modernization, urbanization, industrialization. When industrialization will happen, then urbanization will happen, and people will come out of the villages and to work outside, and you will require a new basis of solidarity, and nationalism as an ideology will provide a new basis of solidarity which is based on the rational and the secular principles rather than the religious principles of the, you can say, Middle Ages or the Roman Empire. And when nationalist consciousness come and you start imagining yourself as a nation, you start aspiring to have a state of your own. So the imagination of being a nation requires, or you will be aspiring for the nation state. Fine. So evolution of nation. So nation is an imagination, and in case of Europe, it has also been held that after the age of nation state, because it is an evolution, there is nothing sacred about it, there is nothing sacrosanct about it. Maybe this can give rise to the age of the integration of Europe again. It was also predicted. The age of integration, fission and fusion has been the normal phenomena. The age of integration will come. Nation state also came before. There was an integration under the Roman Empire, and it was also a confederation. It is also a confederation, but here the basis of integration has been religion. But here the basis of integration will be economy as a basis of integration, and integration will again rise to disintegration. For example, Brexit has happened. So this is the point, is that there is nothing sacred. These are stories. Nation concept has emerged at a particular phase of history, and before that we were not having any imagination about ourselves as our existence as a nation. And maybe in the prismatic societies like India, still many people may not be conscious about this fact, and they may have different imaginations about nations. For example, the Nagas may have their own imagination of their nation, and they may not be able to relate with the idea of this bigger project of India as a nation. Similarly, maybe the people in Kashmir, they have their own imagination of a nation, and we see a sub-national movement in Kashmir which is not accepting the idea of India as a nation. So these are imaginations, and we will have to face these challenges. There are different projects in the politics which are going on. You create nations, you end nations. So this is basically nothing. You can say it is an imagination. It is a project by which you want to unify the people. It can have different reasons for unification. You can also say it is a project of the elite class also. Now, regarding the nation, what will make people to imagine themselves as a nation? So there can be different theories. The two major theories are, one is culture. The common culture can make them imagine. You have to find the commonalities and then you can build the idea of nation on that. That will become a basis of cultural nationalism. And the second can be the will and consciousness that you are determined to establish yourself as a nation. So you can also go for this territorial idea of nation. You can feel it is all imagination. So India's concept of nationalism is territorial, in the sense all those who are living on the territory of India, they form the India as a nation. Maybe we are moving towards the idea of the religious and cultural nation. There can be the will model. This will it can be more secular and more rational model of nationalism. For example, Indian National Congress during the time of independence, they have gone for both will and consciousness, awareness of the importance of coming together, and started the nation building project. So in short, you can say that Indian national movement, understanding of Indian national movement requires us to understand what exactly is a nation and what exactly is nationalism. And understanding nation is a very, very challenging task, because conceptually it has been defined in different ways. But primarily, if we in reference to the history of Europe, then nations appear to be the imagined communities based on invented traditions, and the basis of nation can be the common territory, culture, and there have been the nations where the basis has been the will and the consciousness of modernity, the consciousness of exploitation. So one basis of India as a nation, less has been the consciousness. For example, in your syllabus, there is a topic, the liberal perspective of nation. So culture can be a basis and consciousness can be a basis. So Indian National Congress, liberals or the moderates, they tried to build India as a nation on the basis of common consciousness. Common consciousness, what is that common consciousness? The common consciousness has been the commonality of experience. Which experience? The experience of being exploited by the British. So, from this perspective, one of the major contribution has been of the moderates. If you read Bipin Chandra's book, the contribution of moderates is basically the economic critique of colonialism. Dadabhai Naoroji has written the un-British rule. He gave the theory of drain of wealth. So the liberal perspective of India as a nation represented by the moderates, this was based not on culture. It was based on the common. Let people realize, because considering the diversity in India, they may find it difficult to develop the imagination of oneness. So what can compel people to imagine the oneness which is required for emergence as a nation? That will be, one, the territory, but more than that, the consciousness of economic exploitation, whether in north, south, east and west, everybody faced that. So the liberal perspective of India as a nation was based on the tradition of consciousness, the consciousness of the exploitation. At least there was one thing in common, that the common exploiters were the British, and for that Dadabhai Naoroji, even Gokhale, they have all developed the economic critique of nationalism. So after this topic, if you want, you refer the economic or the contribution of moderates in Bipin Chandra's book, India's Struggle for Independence, to understand their contribution. So that is basically the liberal perspective of national movement. Now, up till now, we can say that India as a nation is also an imagined community which is tied together on the basis of the common consciousness of the economic exploitation by the British Raj, and it can be a unifying factor for the people living in this particular territory. So this territory, India's territory, the Britishers have made, and they also themselves held that India is nothing more a territorial expression. So at least in the territory made by the British, so these people, they can be united, if not on basis of culture and tradition, they can be united on the common secular rational consciousness of the exploitation at the hands of the colonial state. And it was very, very difficult for the nationalists to fight the colonial states, fight the British colonialism, because the British have been very smart in terms of how to establish their rule. So they didn't rule only by the use of force, they have used both the carrot as well as the stick. So it was also not very easy task to let the masses in India realize that the British state is exploitative in nature. Even the leaders were thinking that British rule is a blessing in disguise, and the Britishers always tried to gain the support of the minorities or those who were vulnerable. So they did many good things for Dalits. They followed preferential policies for Muslims. So in short, they were making the task of Indian National Congress all the more difficult, and that is why we need to understand how complex and challenging was the task of Gandhi and how he managed to create the mass struggle or the national movement. So up till now, I hope you have understood the idea of nation, the concept of imagined communities and invented traditions, and it is said that nations belong to the age of nationalism. So nation is a product of an evolution. Now against this evolutionary concept of nation, there is also an alternative theory of nation, which is more stronger theory of nation and nationalism, and that is the theory of cultural nationalism. This theory was given by Herder, and Herder has suggested that no, nations are natural. Nations are existing from the very beginning. Nations are not evolution. Nations are not dependent on the development of certain forces. He established that nations are natural, nations are primordial, nations are eternal. And his theory of nationalism, I have already told you in the concept of Aurobindo's nationalism, that he linked nation with race. Fine. Nation with a race, a particular race developed in a particular geography. In a particular geography, a particular culture developed, and in a particular culture, we see a particular language develop, and language or culture or race is the basis of nation and nations. So they are not created, they are existing from the very beginning. And this theory of cultural nationalism of Herder was a response against the Marxist theory of Marxist critique of nationalism. Fine. So in Europe, we have seen three interpretations of three theories of nationalism. these three theories of nationalism actually emerged in the modern times, in the age of nationalism, which can also be the age of capitalism. And this nationalism capitalism relationship is also very essential to understand Indian international politics too. Fine. So the first theory is the liberal theory of nationalism. You can find in Gellner, and he says that it is a product of modernization, it is a product of evolution, it is a necessity. And then there are Marxist theories of nationalism. We can put Benedict Anderson here, and according to Benedict Anderson, there is no reality in nationalism. These are imagined communities, and these imaginations have been created by the bourgeois class in their own benefit, and hence the bourgeois class felt the need to have the stronger theory of nationalism, for example cultural nationalism. And Herder said that the people, for example the German people speaking similar language, belonging to similar race, they cannot be separated in terms of class or in terms of any other categories. They all have a common interest. This is not our choice, this is given identity, and actually they are misguiding. So if we go by Marxist, then there is nothing called nationalism. It is again a ploy of the bourgeois class. So the workers, they have their own interests. Their interests do not coincide with the interest of the capitalist class, and with one is have, other is have not, one is exploiter, other is exploited. So workers need to be conscious of this. So this theory will appear to be a weaker theory. So emerged a stronger theory of nationalism, that is the theory of cultural nationalism. So there are different theories in India. Again, we will see the liberal theory of Indian nationalism advanced by the early nationalists, whom we call liberals or moderates. The cultural theory of nationalism advanced by the extremists Lal Bal and Pal and Aurobindo Ghosh, then Hindu Mahasabha, then Muslim League, and then this imagined community or Marxist theory. Nationalism is a bourgeois concept. The left section, for example, M.N. Roy, Communist Party of India, even critical humanism, which is also somewhere rooted in M.N. Roy. So we will see that there are different shades of the concept of nation and nationalism. Now the concept is nationalism in colonies. Is it just the imitation of the European nationalism, or is it something different? So Benedict Anderson held that the nationalism in the colonies is nothing but the import of the European concept of nationalism in colonial conditions, and he says that it is a modular form of European nationalism is spread in the colonies because of European colonialism. So there was no nationalist consciousness, no idea of nationalism. It is a result of the European colonialism, and there is no originality. It is the imitation of the Western or the European model. Now in this context, if we just confine in the context of India, we can say that there are different responses to the view that Indian nationalism or nationalism in any other country is just an imitation of the Western. Means India is trying to become Britain, India is trying to become France, or it has Western in origin and there is no indigenous consciousness of nation. And had there been no colonialism, we would not have seen any concept of nation and nationalism in these colonies. So in this context, there are different theories, like we have already seen the theory of, or first of all let us say the liberals or moderates who accepted the British or exogenous roots of Indian nationalism, that under the influence of the forces of modernization and westernization brought in India by the British, we have started the process of becoming or transforming ourselves as a nation. Then we also see the extremist response in Aurobindo Ghosh, who went for a cultural model and said that India was always a nation, and the rise of India or this is not dependent on any external forces. Then academically, there are works of Ashish Nandi, and Ashish Nandi is a Gandhian scholar who believes that India's emergence or India's nationalism is a response to the British rule. So if moderates say India's nationalism is a influence of British rule. With a Western education, we thought just like they have their nation, we should also have a nation. It was a response to the British rule. We went in search of our own identity. If we say that Gandhi's critique of modern civilization is where Gandhi is searching Indian identities. And then there is another very prominent theorist, Partha Chatterjee. And Partha Chatterjee says that Indian nationalism is different, yet a derivative discourse, means to large extent it is an imported concept but with differences. And Indian nationalism or nationalism in the colonies have very ambivalent relationship towards imperialism. Fine. Imperialism in the sense it brought westernization. So there was opposition also and there was acceptance also. Why there is an ambivalent relationship? Because we see opposition, we also see acceptance. Opposition as well as acceptance. So he discusses the evolution of Indian nationalism into 3 stages. Fine. So he gives the 3 stages of Indian nationalism.